and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 289, and today's date is February 13th, 2014, and the title of this episode is, We Will See More Layoffs as the Economy Begins to Collapse. And what do we know? Let's take a step back for a minute. What we've been seeing is that all of these countries, since the central bankers have gotten their hands in there, and they've been giving each one of these countries more and more debt, the countries have been declining. We see it in Cyprus, we see it in Greece, we see it in Spain, we see it in France, we see it in Portugal, and things are just not getting better. I know the government officials are out there and they're telling you, and the Eurozone officials are out there telling you that we're in a recovery, things are getting better, but if you actually look at what's happening, unemployment is continually going up. Each country needs more and more bailouts. They are letting go more and more people because of austerity to get the debt. They have to cut costs, and when they do cut costs, they're cutting the jobs, the people that bring in the tax revenue, and what happens is they don't have enough revenue to pay for this debt. And since they don't have enough revenue, what they have to do is they have to go back to the central banks and say, hey, we need another bailout. And this is a continuous cycle, which will never end, of course, until that country completely collapses. And what we've been seeing since the beginning of this year, right after the holiday season, since the retail industry took a huge, huge hit because, again, the people don't have disposable income. They can't spend money on gifts. So what happened? Sales were completely down. And right after the holiday season, what we saw was many, many retail stores starting to close and, again, laying off people. And now we are seeing the big companies start to lay off company. We see Barclays, Dell, Sony laying off thousands upon thousands of people. And this is starting to spread. And we're going to see this spread to other companies and financial institutions. Just like back in August all the way to October, the main financial companies where they had their mortgage departments, they laid off thousands upon thousands of people in the mortgage division because they understood that there would be no one coming for mortgage applications. So what has happened is during that time in 2013, from August to October, they laid off their mortgage departments, and a lot of mortgage companies like 1-800 East Coast Mortgages completely closed down because they knew that the mortgage applications were plunging, and they understood that the housing is in a bubble and was pumped up by the Fed, and they knew this beforehand. Even though the president was out there letting everyone know in August, he was in Arizona. He went to that state because that was the biggest increase in housing, and he was telling everyone, everything is in a recovery. And even during the State of the Union, he's letting everyone know that we're in a recovery, which we are not. And this is why they started laying off people, because they knew that mortgage applications were going to plunge 66%. And ever since that time in October, all we've seen is mortgage applications decline, sales decline, housing prices starting to level off and starting to decline. And this is all because everything is in a bubble. Canada has a housing bubble, the UK has a housing bubble, and everything is about to pop here. And we've seen this back then. Now what we are seeing are banks, other financial institutions saying, you know what, we understand the collapse is coming, and what we need to do is we need to start trimming down the corporate offices and getting rid of people, buying back our stock, and we better do this now. And we see Barclays already laying off 12,000 people. We've seen other companies, not financial, but other companies saying, listen, sales are just not there and they're not going to get better, so we need to start laying off people. That was Dell, that was Sony, that was Volvo. They started laying off people. Macy's, JCPenney, they laid off thousands of people. And what we're going to see in the financial industry right now is we're going to see those mass layoffs. They are coming. If you remember back in September or so, Meredith Whitney said there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people laid off during the fall winter of 2013, and this was at the same time She said this when the whole Syria fiasco was going on, where the government created this false flag event saying that Assad used chemical weapons in Syria and we were about to go to war, and this is when they were going to do the taper, and all of a sudden they called everything off and everything was pushed back. But now here we are in 2014, and we are seeing this all completely being ramped up because they understand that we are getting very close to the collapse. This is why the market's continually hovering, going down, going up, going down, and we can see from the graph from 1929 compared to now, it's almost identical, and it looks like we're in a dead cat type of bounce right now, and it looks like we're going to be heading down from this point on. So we can see exactly what is happening. And if we look across the world right now, and we go to Australia, let's say, their jobless rate has jumped unexpectedly to a decade high in January, and their unemployment rose to 6% in January, the highest level since January of July 2003. And of course, they forecasted it at 5.8, but is now risen to 6.0. So we can see it's starting to affect other places because it spreads. It starts in a location like Europe, where things are horrific, and then it spreads outward. And what's funny is we saw this happen in 1929. Europe was in a recession/depression. Of course, we had Germany, the Weimar Republic, and hyperinflation. But here in the U.S., we saw the Roaring '20s, and then all of a sudden, during 1929 to 19 whatever, when the war started, it was just the Great Depression. Things couldn't get any better. They tried everything, and the only thing that helped to cover the entire thing up was a war. And after the war, they completely reset the system with Bretton Woods. So we are going to see the same thing happen now, but this time it's going to be a lot worse. And if we look again across the world, especially in the Europe area, which is mimicking what happened in 1929, we are seeing unemployment reaching numbers that are so high right now that there is absolutely no real revenue coming into the government to sustain the debt of the government. And this is why you see France, Spain raising taxes, hitting the Social Security reserves, looking at pensions, looking at bail-ins, looking any place they can to get money. And believe me, the U.S. is doing the same thing. And if we look at Greece right now, Greece is terrible. Their unemployment shot up now to 28%. And the Greek youth unemployment rate is now at 61.4%. And this is supposed to be the future generation coming in, and they're almost all unemployed. So how is this going to work? It cannot. And we are seeing this happen all over the place. So what is Europe planning to do? Well, we understand that they said they decided to create a bail-in document. Of course, all the private Western Central countries have done this. They copied the FDIC Bank of England document that the U.S. and the U.K. created back in December of 2012, and now all the countries have it. And of course, they created this for one reason and one reason only: to take your money. And right now, Europe is deciding what to do, and the European Union's 500 million citizens could be used to fund long-term investments to boost the economy and help plug the gap left by banks since the financial crisis. And this is from an EU document. And what they're going to do is they're going to look inside the banks and the pension savings, and they want to see if they can take that money and use it to fund the EU. And this is what they are looking to do at this time. And this document goes on to say that the usage will be on a purely involuntary basis at the discretion of the Union, and can thus be described as pretty much a confiscation of your money. And again, they throw a lot of different words in there, and of course they're out there saying that they want to mobilize more personal pension savings for long-term financing, and mobilize really means confiscate. And they use all these words to make it sound really great, but when you cut through all the BS and all of this, what it comes down to is they're going to take your money, and this is what they have planned all along. They're going to look at who has what, and they want to take everyone's money. They want to look inside the banks. They want to look inside your pensions. They want to steal it from Social Security. Anywhere they can, they need to take the money, and they are prepping and preparing to do this. And eventually, one day, you're going to wake up, and guess what's going to happen? Your banks, your pension, your retirement funds, you'll be completely locked out of them. They'll be siphoning off the money, and they will let you know when you can have it back, and that's pretty much never, because they'll be taking most of it, and they'll be giving you worthless bank stocks or government bonds, which you can't trade in for the next 25 years. So they're pretty much worthless to you. And this is what they are trying to do at this point. Now, back in the U.S. here, what we are seeing we're seeing that the initial jobless claims have completely missed again. 339 initial jobless claims is the third miss in the last 4 weeks, and back above the 8-month average. And what we're seeing now is that hiring has completely frozen right now. It's stalled. And we are seeing more layoffs than hiring at this point, and things are actually starting to ramp up and get worse. And of course, they're going to manipulate all the numbers. People are going to, readjust. This is from the BLS and the government, and they're going to make it so everything looks fine. Especially when those people drop off, they'll bring the unemployment rate down again. And again, if we really look, we see that Bank of America right now is planning for more layoffs. They haven't released a number yet, but we're going to see many more financial institutions come out with thousands upon thousands of people being laid off. The Forge Group has laid off 1,300 people. Coca-Cola is saying that they're ready to lay off people. Mountain West Bank is laying off people. And right now, IBM is in the process of laying off thousands upon thousands of people in India right now. And this will spread all across into the U.S., and there will be thousands of people who are going to lose their jobs. And of course, they're calling it a rebalancing, restructuring, and they can call it whatever name they want. But in India right now, they're saying it is a slaughterhouse. Job cuts in India announced today, including managers asked to return laptops within 2 hours and leave the premises. And they are just pretty much getting everyone together, and they are laying off around 40% of the people in India. And this is made up of people in India and Americans, and this is going to spread all over the place. And if we really look to see what's happening, since the beginning of this year, from these major companies, and I'm not talking all about the small businesses, I'm talking about the major firms, Sony, Volvo, Dell, IBM, Barclays. We have roughly around 61,000 people that have been laid off just in January right now. And we can see that this is going to be ramped up because they understand what is happening. They understand the economy is completely falling apart, and they understand they need to start cutting jobs. And this is exactly what happened prior to 2008. In October, companies were laying off all before that time period, and then you saw the big layoffs happen right in 2008, right before the market started to crash. I know I worked in Manhattan at this time. I was laid off in August of 2008, along with a couple thousand people that were working with me. And the previous year, we had about 2,000 to 3,000 people laid off. And again, if we look back in IBM, they laid off around 13,000 people last year. So they've been laying off quite a bit every single year. And now all of this is being ramped up because they understand what is coming. Now, retail sales are not doing well, and we understand that stores are closing. We understand that they're laying off right after the holiday season. Macy's, JCPenney, Aeropostale, Best Buy, all closing stores, laying off people. Barnes & Noble, Build-A-Bear, you name it. Stores are closing. People are being laid off. And right now, retail sales have plunged another minus 0.4%. And again, the expectation was a flat line of 0%, but of course, we're below that because people do not have the disposable income, so things are just getting worse. And we're going to see more stores close. More stores close, more people laid off, and where are all these people going to find work? I mean, these are a lot of part-time jobs. Again, the full-time people, where are they going to find work? Things are going to start ramping up, and we're going to see more of this. Now, if we look at the auto industry, and remember what I was talking about, how they were channel stuffing before the holiday season, they channel stuff throughout the holiday season, and now they have so many cars on the dealer lots. They have about 114 days worth of cars just sitting there, and they can't move them. So the big auto manufacturers, the three big ones, of course, GM, Ford, Chrysler, now they are giving massive discounts to get these cars off the lots because no one is buying them. And they believe they can sell their way out of this. And this is what the GM manager, General Motors manager said, and Morgan Stanley warns that there is no way the auto manufacturers can sell their way out of this mess because there is just no one out there to purchase these cars at this time. It's just impossible to move that many cars, even with the discounts that they're offering, because you have to remember, those people who have part-time work, those people who are unemployed, are not running out to add a new payment to their household. They rather keep the car they have and just use it until it completely breaks down and repair it. And right now, they don't have that extra money to spend on a new car payment, especially when they're trying to meet rent payments or mortgage payments and pay for food. The last thing on their mind is to get a shiny brand new car. Now, as we know, the debt limit is going to be suspended until March 2015, and everyone's, oh, great, the U.S. isn't going to default. Well, it's actually the opposite. Now, President Obama has a blank check. He can write it for whatever he wants, and you're going to see the amount of debt skyrocket to new heights. And this is actually going to be worse for the economy, not better, because as this debt continually grows more and more and more, the revenue is going to go down, 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 and guess what? There's going to be a separation of the amount of revenue to the amount of debt and how much they need, so they're going to have to borrow even more, and this is going to really ramp up now, and it will not be able to be sustained. They'll be looking for tax money all over the place. They will not be able to find it, and again, this will lead us to the collapse. And this is why in my other reports I've been talking about China, how they're becoming the next reserve currency, all the problems with Syria, how they're trying to create a false flag event to start a war. And this is why they've been building up the propaganda, because really we are in the end game right now, and we are headed down a path which we cannot turn back on, and it's going to get very ugly. Now, we know that the government would love to have full control of the internet. They want control. They don't like all this other news sources coming out because they like to control the news. And right now, Bing is being accused of censoring search results. Microsoft is being asked to explain why Chinese language queries keyed into Bing search engine by customers outside of web-restricted mainland China are coming back heavily censored. And people have done research, and they're saying that the latest research indicates that Microsoft search engine Bing is censoring English and Chinese language search on its homepage in order to exclude certain results. And they have also noticed that Bing is practicing subtle censorship with search results. And of course, the officials in Microsoft and Bing declined to respond with any type of comment to what has been happening. And again, we are going to see this start to progress and move forward, and eventually the government will censor what you see on the internet. They have already given corporations, AT&T, Verizon, cable companies, the ability to say you can go with this search and you can see this site, but we will not allow you to see these other sites. And they do have the ability to do this because of net neutrality has been shot down, and they can make you actually pay to go see a certain site, or they can determine that that site is not acceptable and not show you that site in the searches at all. So even if Google displays the search and you click on it, it could come up saying, sorry, this is restricted, we're not allowing you to see it. And of course, they're making this decision for you. You're not making that decision at all. So that is censoring what you see. Now, we understand that the government wants to confiscate everyone's weapons, and this is a fact. This is why you're seeing all these mass shootings in the schools. This is why they've been building up the propaganda. You will see more mass shootings. You will see the main event occur, and you'll know it's the main event because as soon as it happens, you will see the president on the TV telling everyone we need gun control, and we just so happen to have the UN Arms Treaty and the gun bill pending in the Senate, and we need to pass these right now, and this is how this is going to play out. But right now in Connecticut, it looks like tens of thousands of people in Connecticut are saying no to the gun registration. Now, there have been people who went in and registered their guns under the new laws, and they said about 50,000 residents went in and actually registered their guns, but they're saying about 10 to 20,000 people have not, and they don't understand why they're not going to do it. And the reason is because they really don't have to. Because if you actually read the Second Amendment, it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, if you really read this, it's your right to keep and bear, to carry arms, ammunition, weapon, military-style weapons, shall not be infringed, which is limit, shall not be limited. And if you look at the court case, the Supreme Court case of Marbury versus Madison, any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. So, again, you can see these laws are completely null and void according to the Second Amendment. You do not have to, they're limiting your ability to have certain weapons. They're limiting your ability to have ammunition or a weapon that has a certain number of bullets in the magazine. So again, all of these laws are completely null and void according to the Second Amendment, and these people actually don't have to go register their weapons because according to the law, it says they don't have to do this because you have the right to own this weapon. Okay, now DHS, as I reported yesterday, they're purchasing about 141,000 rounds of sniper ammo, and DHS has also put in an order for 75.1 million rounds of ammunition this year. Now, this is in addition to the billions of rounds that they already have, and of course they say they need it for training and whatnot. But this is a lot of ammunition for terrorists that actually bomb things. Well, allegedly bomb things. And, what do they need all of this for? They need sniper rounds, hundreds of thousands of sniper rounds. They need millions, billions rounds of ammunition. What is this for? Have you ever seen terrorists roaming around the streets of 1,000 people with terrorist weapons and bombs? I haven't seen it. No, they are doing this because they understand when the collapse comes, they need all of this material, tanks, weapons, sniper rounds, to control the people of the United States, and this is why they are doing it. Now, the DHS is also seeking the next generation checkpoint screening system. And what that's going to be is they want to just look through the top layer of your clothing, your shoes, your socks to find out if you have weapons or bombs and things like that. And they want to use this, and they want the checkpoint imaging, which screen more than 250 people per hour and detect if you have any type of explosive or weapons and things like that. But I find it very interesting now that they are using the word checkpoint. And I've been saying this for quite a while, that they are trying to get the American people used to the word checkpoint, because this is what they've used in, let's say, Nazi Germany, where you reached a checkpoint where they said, give me your paperwork. They checked it out, and they let you pass. The same thing that's going to happen here in the U.S. We understand that they have license plate scanners that's being fed into a federal database. They're taking your DNA. They'll be taking your fingerprint. They'll be taking your iris scan. They have an agreement with most of the states right now to have all your license information processed up to a federal database, and your license will be a real ID. And again, if you look at the United States, there's a 100-mile constitutional free zone, which is completely non-existent, but it exists in the eyes of the federal government. But in real life, in the way the Constitution is written, there is no such thing as a constitutional free zone. But we'll just say that they have their constitutional free zone, which is 100 miles in from any bordering nation or the ocean. And again, they will have checkpoints in these areas because these are the most populated areas. I mean, you look Washington, New York, Maryland, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Texas, Houston, Dallas, Miami, Atlanta. You look at all this. This is a huge population area, and it covers most of the United States and the population of the United States. And in all these areas, they are getting everyone used to the word checkpoint, because you will be checked at every single point to make sure you are not doing something, to make sure that you're being tracked, to make sure they know where you are going every step of the way. And this is what the Nazis used to make sure that people weren't roaming free and to account for everyone, and this is why they always checked your papers. Okay, now the Syrian opposition is not going to meet with the government delegation. The Syrian opposition on February 14th said, no, we're not attending right now. There will be no meeting with the government delegation. The government took a very unconstructive position, and they do not conduct negotiations. Well, the opposition, controlled by the United States, CIA, Saudi Arabia, Israel, wants Assad removed, and they gave him a 5-page document saying, this is what we want. We want Assad to step down, we want to put a puppet regime in there, and we like to take over the entire country and put all the natural resources on the US dollar as reserve currency. That was their negotiation. And of course, the Syrian government said, no, we're not doing that. We're a sovereign nation, and the only way that Assad will step down is if he's voted out of office. Now, you have to remember, the United States has been funding, along with other countries, funding the rebels in Syria. These are the paid mercenaries that most of them aren't even Syrian. They've come from all over the world to fight for the freedom of the Syrian people. And again, these are all paid mercenaries. They're there because they're getting paid. They're there because they've been promised certain things once they overthrow the government. And what we see right now is that the United States is playing up the war crime scenario, that the people in Syria need humanitarian aid. Now, we have to think about this for a second. The United States, along with Israel, Saudi Arabia, put these people into place to fight against the government there. Pretty much, we all know what it is. They want to overthrow Assad, and they want to put a puppet regime into place to pay for all the natural resources using the US dollar. Same thing they're doing in Ukraine. There's no difference. They did it all in the other countries, Libya, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, all those countries, the same thing happened. Now, the United States, with other nations, have created this problem. And again, these rebels are not Syrian. Most of them are not. And they have committed horrific crimes. We've seen them on videos, ripping people's hearts out, decapitating people. And they were actually the ones who did the attack of the chemical weapons in August that pretty much hurt all those people. And we have to use common sense here. Why would the Syrian president, okay, use weapons on his own people? It makes no sense whatsoever. His people support him. Why would he actually use the weapons against his own people? It makes no sense, especially when he invited, with Russia, invited the UN Security Council in August to inspect the country for chemical weapons, for a different chemical attack. At the same time that happened, all of a sudden there was a chemical weapon attack which crossed the red line of President Obama. It makes absolutely no sense that he would do anything like that. A sane person who runs the country wouldn't invite the UN Council in there and then say, you know what, let's fire some chemical weapons off. It makes no sense whatsoever. And we can see what is happening here. So what happened now is the U.S. is going out to the UN saying, listen, we need humanitarian aid, and here is a draft for the UN Security Council on how we're going to handle the humanitarian aid access to Syria, and this is what it looks like, and this is what it says. And Russia said, absolutely not, we're going to veto this, because basically what it says in this humanitarian UN resolution, that Assad has committed war crimes, and we need to go, the UN needs to go in there and supply humanitarian aid access to the people. And Russia said, well, wait a minute, you're accusing, and if we all sign off on this, it says that he has committed war crimes, and now you can go in there, and this looks like you're setting up a way to get in and remove Assad. No, we are not going to sign this. We are going to veto this, and we will not allow this to happen. And this is what is happening right now, because the U.S. government, the central bankers, are going to try every single trick in the book to try to get Assad removed until they go ahead with their false flag event. And we'll see this ramp up as time goes on. Again, this was the first method. Of course, they started out with the Geneva II, now with the UN resolution for humanitarian aid, and this will start to ramp up as things go on here. Now, Iran's supreme leader is telling the students we must prepare for a cyber attack. We had cyber attacks before on our land. The Stuxnet was a cyber attack on their nuclear centrifuge, and we can expect more attacks in Iran here. And again, we know that Stuxnet was committed by the U.S. government, and they pretty much brought that malware virus into the nuclear area, into the nuclear reactor area, and it pretty much messed up the centrifuges and things like that. And what they're saying is that he wants everyone to prepare for battle because more cyber attacks are on their way. And of course, they definitely are, because we understand that the U.S. government, the central bankers, Israel, Saudi Arabia, they want to get into Iran and Syria. If the peace deal goes south, guess what? We're going to see other things happen where they can move in, either with a cyber attack. Of course, they'll cyber attack Iran, and they'll try to bring down the system that way. They'll try any method they can to get into Iran any way they possibly can. The same thing goes with Syria, and we'll definitely see this start to ramp up here. Now, we understand that CISPA is still pending in the Senate, and right now, the White House announced on Wednesday that they're going to have new policies improving public and private security efforts to protect the critical U.S. infrastructure against the growing threat of cyber attacks. And cyber threats pose one of the greatest national security dangers that the United States faces, and this is what President Barack Obama said. A report A report called Framework for Improving Critical Infrastructure of Cybersecurity is the latest step in the federal government efforts to better coordinate and share information on cyber threats. Right now it's voluntary. They want all the companies to give them their information, and they want this information passed to the government. This is actually what CISPA says, but right now it's voluntary, because what have we seen in the past? Well, we've seen cyber attacks on Target, Neiman Marcus, and other retail stores. We've seen cyber attacks on news agencies like CNN. We've seen cyber attacks on PayPal and eBay, and now they're coming out. Of course, they're using all these cyber attacks saying, hey, all you companies, you need to start sharing information with us so we can protect you. And eventually we're going to see more cyber attacks, and this is when we're going to see CISPA being brought up, and it will no longer be voluntary to share the information. Every company will have to share their information all to the federal government, and they will completely take control of the Internet at this point. Now, there is an energy expert out there, and we understand the power grid did get hit, and it was a physical attack by professionals. And right now, the energy expert Wellingoff is saying that the United States remains vulnerable to a terrorist attack that could cripple its power grid and throw the nation into chaos. And we understand they've been planning this. They know it's going to happen. Janet Napolitano said not if, but when, and many other people have come out over the years saying that the power grid is very vulnerable. And this goes on to say that it's been demonstrated to us now that there are people who have been training for this type of attack. They have the ability to perpetrate this type of attack and execute it with precision. And this goes on to say even more that what I know, and this is Wellingoff saying this, what I know is what was an attack that was purposeful, done with intention to destroy a very high value, very important part of our electric grid and infrastructure, which were high voltage substations. That attack was extremely well planned, and it was then very, very well executed in a professional manner by people who have a high degree of training. So that's what I know. Now, of course, Jay Johnson, the head of Homeland Security, had to step in, and what he was saying is that the attackers of April 16 substation, North Carolina, were trying to disrupt power to Silicon Valley. Johnson said the public needs to understand that such events could be carried out by a cyber attack. A cyber attack could cause similar, and in some cases far greater, damage by taking several facilities offline simultaneously and potentially leaving millions of Americans in the dark. And we are being hit by cyber attacks every day to these power grid infrastructure systems, and the risk is very high. And it also went on to say our critical infrastructure continues to be at risk from threats in cyberspace, and our economy might be harmed from them. Now, this is the second time I heard something about the economy being harmed. The first one was yesterday when I said that the Target and the Neiman Marcus were not directed toward harming the economy. Now, Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, says that these threats in cyberspace could harm the economy. So this is the second time I've been hearing this, and now I can see what they are actually doing. They are bringing in and now letting the people know that cyber attacks could hurt the economy. They are building the propaganda for the next cyber attack. We know it's coming. We understand they've been preparing for this. They need a way out of this collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.